For the last 4 years of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, it's consistently targeted critical civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, schools, kindergartens, apartments and power plants, often in densely populated areas. By the start of winter, nearly half of the country's power grid was out of commission and 10 million Ukrainians were without electricity. Tetiana Pavliuk lives with her husband and her young daughter. She barely ever sleeps because of the constant wave of ballistic and drone attacks, day and night.
Life here in Kyiv is not easy at all. We are struggling every day with electricity cuts, with no heating. During the day we have drone attacks, at night we have missile attacks. Today night we had this attack. I didn't sleep not at all. I slept for 2-3 hours, but in the morning I need to wake up, I need to prepare breakfast for my daughter.
Mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, says Ukrainians are freezing still because attacks have cut out electricity and heating.
This winter is one of the most difficult winter in the last 4 years for many reasons. First of all, we have massive attack from Russian Federation, kamikaze drone, ballistic missile, cruise missiles, attack our critical infrastructure.
This power plant is now no longer functional after several ballistic and drone missile attacks since August. On January 9th, the final attack meant that it can no longer operate, meaning that 300,000 people in Kyiv were plunged into darkness and left without heat or energy with minus 23 degrees. As you can hear, the air raid sirens mean that we have to relocate to a shelter, proving that people in Kyiv will never be safe until this war is over.
EU Commissioner for Crisis Management Hadi Labib delivered 1,000 emergency generators for use across the whole country as a short-term measure to keep hospitals, schools and shelters functioning. One such hospital in Kyiv she visited was forced to conduct surgery with a torchlight as Russian attacks meant electricity was cut. The Commissioner also visited Kyiv residents in the hospital who had been badly injured by Russian attacks in family homes.
It's very difficult to speak after what we just saw, wounded soldiers, but also a patient in very severe conditions because of this war. It's women, it's innocent people who are just living their everyday life. We just met a woman who has been targeted in her apartment. She lived in the 5th floor and a drone was entering in through the windows.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky denounced Russia's Vladimir Putin as a slave to war in a speech to the Munich Security Conference. He said Russia had damaged every power plant in the country, saying Ukraine was doing everything to end the war, but so far there's no sign the Kremlin has any intention on stopping. Shona Murray, Euronews, Kyiv.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Geneva ahead of a second round of negotiations between his country and the United States. Tehran says indirect Iran-U.S. nuclear talks mediated by Oman will also be held on Tuesday. Washington is expected to seek to expand the context of the meeting to include Iran's ballistic missiles and its vast network of proxies in the region. Tehran and Washington restarted negotiations this month after previous talks collapsed when Israel and Iran were embroiled in a 12-day conflict in June. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters on Monday that he was hopeful the Oman talks would lead to a deal. Uncertainty surrounds the fate of Iran's stockpile of more than 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium that was last seen by nuclear watchdog inspectors in June, a small technical step from the 90% enrichment threshold needed for weapons grade.
The EU will send the Commissioner for the Mediterranean, Dubravka Šuica, to represent the EU at the first meeting of Trump's Board of Peace in Washington on Thursday. The European Commission has said Šuica will only participate in a specific part of the meeting dedicated to Gaza and is not joining as an official sitting member of the board. Italy, Romania, Greece and Cyprus have all accepted invitations by the Trump administration to participate as observers. Only 2 EU member states, Hungary Hungary and Bulgaria have accepted invitations to sit as members. An EU official said that the bloc wants to play a role in the reconstruction of Gaza despite numerous concerns over the board's executive setup, which was initially conceived as a vehicle to rebuild the territory but now says its mandate is global peace. The inclusion of Russian President Vladimir Putin on the board also makes membership politically untenable for most EU countries. French government officials have blamed what they refer to as the ultra-left for the death of a far-right activist in Lyon after he was attacked on the sidelines of a conference by hard-left France and both MEP Rima Hassan. The 23-year-old activist, identified as Quentin de Ranc, died in hospital from a traumatic brain injury on Saturday evening. Supporters said he was providing security at a protest against Hassan's appearance at the Sciences Po University when he was assaulted by rival activists. De Ranc was taken into care by emergency services in serious conditions after being attacked by at least 6 individuals, Lyon public prosecutor told a press conference on Monday. Certain far-right figures, including Marion Maréchal, Marine Le Pen and Éric Zemmour, accused the far left over the incident.
L'extrême gauche française et en particulier LFI a du sang sur les mains. Voilà. Et je pèse mes mots, puisque de fait, l'état-major de LFI depuis des semaines et des mois défend systématiquement, publiquement la jeune garde. Donc je veux leur dire que nous ne sommes pas dupes de leur pseudo-message de compassion et que nous espérons bien que justice sera rendue.
France and Board, led by Rima Hassan and Raphaël Arnaud, quickly condemned the attack and insisted that the whole truth must be brought to light. Despite the fact that the justice system has not revealed the identity of the attackers, the party has been accused by members of Les Républicains, the National Rally and the government. Jean-Luc Mélenchon has denounced the accusations as baseless.
Tout s'est passé ailleurs qu'à l'endroit où se trouvait Rima et le service d'ordre des Insoumis. Tout a été truqué, arrangé pour faire croire à une sorte d'expédition du service d'ordre insoumis pour traquer un pauvre malheureux. La mort n'a rien à faire dans nos pratiques et dans nos rangs. J'ai dit des dizaines de fois que nous étions hostiles et opposés à la violence. Nous savons ce qu'est la douleur d'un parent qui perd un enfant et nous y compatissons, quelle que soit l'opinion de ce parent et quelle que soit l'opinion de cet enfant.
A criminal investigation has been opened by authorities for voluntary homicide in addition to aggravated violence and criminal conspiracy to commit a crime.
In the southeastern corner of Europe, a region that for decades remained outside the frame is now at the center of European energy security. Following the energy blockades in Russia, the European natural gas map is being redrawn and Thrace is taking on a key role. 2 liquefied natural gas terminals are already operating in Greece. One of them, the floating FSRU in Alexandroupolis, already supplies energy to Greece and Europe. At the same time, there are plans to build a second terminal with the aim of increasing LNG imports, mainly from the US, which will be channeled to Central and Eastern Europe to meet increased demand and compensate for losses from the ban on Russian energy. However, the implementation of this infrastructure is stumbling over tough political bargaining in Brussels. The European Commission has decided not to finance new natural gas infrastructure, citing the goals of the green transition. On the other hand, governments and energy groups in European countries are pushing for a change of course. Pressure on Brussels is mounting, not only from within the Union, but also from the United States, with representatives of the European Energy Commission attending a crucial meeting in Washington at the end of February. The Commission's decision is expected in 2026, as alternative networks must be ready before energy gaps are created. Portugal has topped the EU leaderboard for renewable electricity with a record 80.7% of its power coming from green sources in January. Surges in hydropower and wind led the charge, marking the country's best performance since a massive blackout triggered chaos across the Iberian Peninsula in 2025. While Norway leads Europe overall with over 96%, Portugal's recent performance has pushed it ahead of Denmark into second place. The shift is delivering significant financial benefits, with the Portuguese Association for Renewable Energies estimating savings of €703 million compared to natural gas. Despite previous claims that green energy caused the 2025 blackout, official probes blame technical errors and poor grid planning rather than renewables. Experts now warn that while green power production is booming, Europe must invest nearly €584 billion to modernize its aging grid infrastructure by 2030.
For more than 1,000 years, dogs have pulled sleds across the Arctic for Inuit, seal hunters and fishermen, but now they are being pulled over earth and rock. Greenlandic dog sled champion Jorgen Christensen from the town of Ilulissat, around 300 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, said it's the first time he can remember when there has been no snow or ice in the bay in January.
Hundeslæge rammer meget, meget dårligt. Fordi vi mister det der vores rute eller stor bro, fordi når det kommer havisen, og det vi føler det helt oppen til hele kysten, hvor bestemmer hvor skal jeg hen. Men nu der ingen havis.
In the 1980s, winter temperatures in Ilulissat regularly hovered around minus 25 degrees Celsius. But nowadays, sometimes it can be as warm as 10 degrees, Christensen said. The Inuit Circumpolar Council said Greenland's government had to financially support many families after sea ice failed to freeze sufficiently for hunting. The melting ice could reveal untapped deposits of critical minerals, which is why many Greenlanders believe that's why US President Donald Trump turned their island into a geopolitical hotspot.